This is Professor Michael Chapman. I'm one of the most experienced IVF doctors in Australia. I believe that an important part that I can contribute is to educate patients in relation to fertility, infertility, and all that involves. These series of podcasts help to educate you. I hope they are helpful to you. If you wish to know more, however, I'm more than happy to have you contact me via email, which is profmchapman@gmail.com, or make an appointment to see me on 9138 4222. We can also talk about what happens in the laboratory, because there are a couple of different ways of creating an embryo in the laboratory. The standard methodology, where we all began, was to take an egg and put it in a dish. It was a test tube originally, which is why they were called test tube babies. But we put the egg in a shallow dish and then add in 50,000 prepared sperm. That's prepared in the sense that we've got a concentrated sample of the best swimmers, and let nature do its bit. So one of those sperm will penetrate the egg and create a pregnancy. So that's standard, and that occurs in around about 40% of cycles in Australia. And the alternative method, which was originally designed to be able to treat men who didn't have the 50,000 sperm to put with each egg, so men with low sperm counts, it was designed for, and that's where we take one single sperm. So the scientist looks around for the tall, dark-haired looking one, swimming one, the good one, and select that because that's the one most likely to fertilize an egg. And then that sperm is injected into the egg by the scientist. And that system is called ICSI. It's called Intracytoplasmic Sperm Injection. And that certainly is a common way of dealing with, first of all, male infertility. Secondly, women who've been through cycles and had poor fertilization rate, even when the man's sperm seems to be good. And some clinics use it as a backup all the time. So they will do 50% with the standard technique and 50% doing ICSI. So around Australia, I think the last figures were around about 58% of cycles were ICSI, but some clinics were 80% and others were 35%, reserving it really just for the men with a male problem. The downsides of ICSI, you can damage an egg, and unless you've got very skilled scientists. There is a little bit of evidence that in the male factor group, the ones with low sperm counts, we may end up with a slightly higher congenital abnormality rate. ICSI got blamed for that, but probably it's actually the sperm that's the culprit, because they are men with lower sperm counts. In terms of what happens after fertilization, the laboratories these days are highly sophisticated. Culture mediums are now much better than they ever were. The actual incubators that we put the embryos in are so much better than they were when I started, because our main goal there is to mimic the fallopian tube. That's where fertilization occurs in nature, where it's nurtured for 5 days before it moves into the uterus to produce the pregnancy. So what we're doing is mimicking as much as we can. So it's dark, it's at a concentration of oxygen and carbon dioxide similar to the fallopian tube. The culture mediums are now mimicking very closely what the nature produces in terms of growth factors, pH, all of those things. And that's why pregnancy rates have gone from, when I started, we were happy with 10%, we're now happy with 35 to 40% for a single embryo transfer. It's amazing how much things have happened, and it's all because of what happens in the lab. I don't think I've changed or improved particularly over the years. What I do have is a lab that has improved dramatically. So when we put the embryo back on day 5, that technique is really, again, pretty much the same as I've used for the last 25 years. It's like having a pap smear. We put a little tube in the neck of the womb to guide a very soft tube containing the embryo. We slide that in between the two layers of the uterine cavity, the front wall and the back wall of the lining, and inject about 0.5 ml fluid in which the embryo sits, and eventually, hopefully, will attach to the lining of the womb and move on. During that second half of the cycle, we almost always give some form of support to the lining of the womb. The lining of the womb is best when progesterone levels are high. That produces the best environment for an embryo to attach. And that is achieved either by vaginal pessaries or vaginal tablets or vaginal gel. So multiple ways of doing it vaginally, but also we now have a product of injecting on a daily basis of progesterone. And that, I think, is potentially an advance, albeit it's another injection, but it certainly guarantees high progesterone levels. So we continue that all the way through to the pregnancy test, and usually, certainly my view of the evidence is that we can actually stop the progesterone after that, because the embryo and its placenta are producing sufficient progesterone. However, probably more than half of my colleagues still give progesterone after that, on the basis that if we don't give it and there's a miscarriage, maybe we should have. The evidence is not strong that that's the case, but it does no harm. That's various ways that occur, that are undertaken in a fresh IVF cycle. They are the various steps you go through. In each of the clinics, your hand will be held by a nurse. In some clinics, it's much more personalized, such as in our clinic, where the nurses will be telling you each time you have a blood test or a scan, they'll talk to me about your results that early afternoon, and they'll call you to say what the next step will be, either changing your dose or preparing you for the egg collection. That close monitoring and close collaboration with you and our team is vital to getting you through what is an emotional process, stressful process, and hopefully at the end of the day, producing the baby that you want.
And don't forget that you can access all the previous episodes by going to our website www.theivfjourney.com and select IVF Journey podcast from the navigation menu.